Hey guys, Blazen here, and today, in this video, I'm going to review the Vanguard class in Space Marine 2. Now, I did the last video on the tactical, and I realized I kind of fucked up. As you might have noticed, my camera is now up top instead of at the bottom, because I'm a dumbass and I realized it was blocking some of the wording. So that's why I'm on top now. Let's get into the video. Let's waste no time, right? We already know what's going on here. So the Vanguard is between the tactical and the Vanguard. They're one of the two I switch between, like my most played classes. So same thing like tactical. This is my ruthless solo run that I did. Hence why I post those videos. Let's start with the first column, right? Moving target. Each melee attack you land reduces the range damage you take by 1% up to 15%. If you do not land a melee attack for 3 seconds, the effect ends. I've actually tested this. It's actually kind of nice. And especially when you... Actually, no. I'll get into that later. It is kind of nice. It's not a bad option if you're a Vanguard player. I'll recommend it. It's nice. But ultimately, I went for melee mastery. Melee damage increased by 10% against major level enemies and higher. This is really nice, but that's also maybe personally me, because I just really enjoy the melee combat system in this game. So yeah, I just really like to get my ass in there and just fucking kick their asses. So yeah, that's why I just prefer melee mastery. Whatever gives me more melee damage, I'm gonna prefer it. And then the last option, this is one of those perfectly timed dodges. You know, you don't lose control for 5 seconds, heavy hits, whatever. Like I said with the tactical had something similar. This is too niche, and this is probably the kind of useless one. If you're gonna, I would recommend either moving target or melee mastery in this column. All right, so that's the first column. Let's move on to the second column. Duelist. Some of you might think I'm crazy that I don't have this. I assume most Vanguard players probably have this as like their default. Perfect parry and perfect block windows increased by 50%. My mindset on this is like, yeah, I've had this for a while, but if you're really good at the perfect parry and perfect block stuff, this is kind of, I don't want to say useless, but it's like you don't need it. Like, I find myself to be pretty good with parrying and knowing the animations and whatnot. I'm pretty good at that. So this is kind of like, I don't need this. If anything, even if you do know the perfect parry and stuff like that, this kind of acts as a safety net if you do kind of mistime your parry windows a little bit. But I gave this up. It's not bad, but that's just my opinion why I don't use it anymore, because I'm pretty good at parrying in this game. I don't need it. And then there's close combat focus. You take 20% less melee damage but 10% more range damage. Considering lethal difficulty exists, and lethal difficulty does kind of amp up the range damage, maybe even beforehand this maybe would have been fine, but because lethal difficulty exists, you probably don't want this. This was probably the perk you want to avoid. Or I don't know, like I said with the tactical, if you guys run this, I mean, how is the 10% more range damage? I mean, and Vanguard only comes with 2 armor blocks or whatever, so this might not be it. Ultimately, I went with the last one, Conviction. The moment your armor breaks is fully depleted, you take 15% less health damage for 10 seconds. This is nice, and I have noticed this. Like, yeah, because the Vanguard only has 2 armor slots, you don't lose health as much fast. And also, Conviction is very nice to complement to the Vanguard's passive ability, which Vanguard's contested health regenerates 50% faster, which is huge. You're rewarded, even though your armor is broken, to like be offensive and get your contested health back. And this just Conviction, I think, just fully complements Vanguard's passive. So ultimately, I went with this one. I assume most Vanguard players probably have this, but I went with this. All right, moving on to the third column, Retribution. After you are grabbed or knocked back, you deal 20% more melee damage for 10 seconds. This is a little niche, or like, getting grabbed isn't too common. But getting knocked back can be kind of common. At least in this column, like I said, I enjoy the melee system, so any perks that allow me to get more melee damage, I'm just going to go for it. So that's why I just go ahead and went with Retribution. And then Consecutive Execution, killing 10 enemies, and now that right there, like the whole killing 10 enemies requirement really bothers me. So I already don't want it. And it just gives you 1 equipment charge, so 1 grenade. And it's every 3 minutes. This is probably, in my opinion, the most useless perk here. I mean, does anybody use these kind of perks, let me know. And then the third perk, when your health is less, I was actually considering this one. When your health is less than 50%, your perfect dodge window is doubled. I was considering this one, but considering that the Vanguard's health, he regens contested health 50% faster, and on top of that I have conviction and also another perk which we're going to get to. This, you're not really, I don't find myself less than 50% health all the time, because very quickly I'm going to get my health back by Major's executions. If the requirement was different, maybe I would have had this one, but because of the requirement is less than 50% health, I don't use it. I guess it depends on your Vanguard setup, but I don't think you should have this in my opinion. So ultimately I just went with Retribution. Alright, let's move on to the team. Melee champion, all squad members deal 15% more melee damage. Again, I love meleeing. More melee damage is great for me. And then unmatched deal. I have actually tried this. This is probably the most useless, for lack of a better term, perk in the team, because the extremist level finishers that your squad does is not worth it. It is very tiny. It's not worth it. And then the last one, Inner Fire. All squad members can restore ability charge by 15% by performing finishers. This is nice, especially if you have an assault on your team. This is a great perk for assault if you have an assault on your team. And of course for the grapnel launcher you have, and basically everybody. You can either go with either melee champion or Inner Fire, but like I said, I like melee, so I went with melee champion. Don't go for the middle perk, it's not worth it. Alright, now we move on to the gear, which is the dive kick and grapnel launcher and whatnot. Restless Fortitude. After a diving kick, you take 10% less damage for 10 seconds. This is kind of nice. When you stack a lot of the take less range damage perk buffs and whatnot, it adds up. I've tried all the range damage, like nerfs, buffs, whatever, and holy fuck, like the range damage that's dealt to you, like you almost don't take any. So if you stack up the other less range damage stuff, it's nice. If you want it, you can go for it. It's not bad. And then Shockwave, I ultimately went with this one, obviously. Diving Kick additionally deals damage in a 5-meter radius. Well, also what I like about this is on the Tyranids that spawn like the fucking green weed fields. That's what I call them. I call them weed fields. It also gets rid of those when you dive kick a Tyranid. So you get rid of all that shit around you. And of course any minus level enemies surrounding you as well. And then the last one, Diving Kick additionally deals a small amount of damage to enemies on the way to the grapnel launcher's target. This is not bad. Thing is, you're not always gonna be kicking other enemies in your way. Sometimes you just want to target a specific extremist or majorist level enemy, even though there's no other minors level enemies around you and whatnot. This isn't bad, but I think you can't go wrong with any of these. I think any of these is fine, but ultimately I went with this one. Moving on to the next column. Zone of Impact. Performing a finisher with the grapnel launcher deals a small amount of damage to nearby enemies. Now here's the thing. This confused everybody, including me. Because everybody, he has a grapple hook. You'd expect maybe a grapple hook finisher. But it's crazy that the devs didn't make a grapple hook finishers, or even just a few. So this probably confused the hell out of people on how this works. So for those of you that don't know, the way how this works is, let's say like majors level enemies, glowing red, ready for an execution. You can grapple towards them and then just don't do anything. The animation will play for you. That's how it works. But unfortunately, because, and especially if you're playing online with other people, chances are other people are gonna finish that enemy for you, and therefore this perk kind of loses value. If things were different, if the devs actually made like cool grapnel finishers with this, then this would be a nice perk. That's insane to me. I can't be the only one, right? Where it's like, you made a grapple hook, and there's no grapnel finishers. That's crazy. They gotta add some grapnel finishers, and just new finishers in general. But anyways, that's my little rant on that. The next one, Tenacity. After killing 10 enemies in rapid succession, diving kicks, yeah, another one of these. Diving kicks damage increases by 25%, which sounds good. For 10 seconds, cooldown is 30 seconds. I haven't tested this too much. It doesn't sound bad, but the thing is the 10 enemies requirement to proc it. I feel like I can't really say if it's good or bad. I'll let you guys decide on this one. I haven't tried this one too much. And then the third one, this is what I went with, Tip of the Spear. Enemies hit by diving kick take 15% more range damage for 10 seconds. This is kind of counterintuitive in my opinion, because it's like, you know, when you dive kick towards an enemy, your natural instinct is to melee because they're literally right in front of you. Why would you want to shoot them? That sounds counterintuitive, right? I can't be the only one that kind of thinks that I should have more melee damage, not range damage. This is ultimately I just went with this one. Moving on to this next column. Thrill of the fight. After a perfectly timed parry, block, or dodge, you take 15% less health damage for 3 seconds. It doesn't sound bad, but unfortunately, like, it's only 3 seconds. This might be one of the more useless sort of perks that gives you the less health damage perk. It only lasts for 3 seconds. But like I said, if you stack all the less health damage buffs, it adds up. So this is just another one to add to the pile. Ultimately, I went with this one, Grim Determination. When Grapnel Launcher is in cooldown, weapon damage increases by 10%. This one's nice. Why not? Your guns do 10% more damage. And then the third one, you actually can't go wrong with this one either. Combat Readiness, Grapnel Launcher recharges 20% faster. You can't go wrong with that one. Getting your Grapnel is always nice. Ultimately, it would have to be the second or third one. You would probably go with the third one. The first one, not so much. And then finally, we come to the signature. Performing a finisher with a Grapnel Launcher restores its charge, which sounds nice, but as you know, I've already discussed, there's no grapnel finisher, and chances are your teammates are going to finish the kills for you. There's also a delay when you grapnel towards an enemy. So ultimately, unfortunately, this perk loses value just because the devs didn't add any grapnel finishers at all for the Vanguard, which is crazy. Moving on to this one, Emperor's Blessing. Taking lethal damage restores all armor instead of incapacitating you. Cooldown is every 3 minutes. This is nice, actually. I did try this. It's not bad. If you end up having to die, you do get your 2 armor slots back. I recommend it, actually. But ultimately, I assume probably what most Vanguards have is the Adrenaline Rush. Melee kills of major level enemies or higher restore health by 10%. Essentially, you're playing Doom 2016, Doom Eternal with this perk. So this is just another way to get health without using stims. This is probably the best signature for Vanguard. Maybe even a little OP, I would say. Maybe I would decrease it to 5%, but overall I'd leave it. Maybe I'd leave it alone. But I think in the signature section, this is the best perk to go for. And yeah, this is my Vanguard Ruthless build. This is what I went through solo. Maybe one day I'll do lethal. I also am aware there's a new difficulty coming eventually. That'll be fun. So yep, that's my Vanguard. Next class I'll talk about is the Heavy. Heavy is my tertiary. I have fun with Heavy sometimes. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe, share the video around, and let me know down in the comments, you know, what kind of builds are you rocking with Vanguard. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Till next time, peace.